Here are our objectives for just my little portion. When we're finished with our 20-minute crash course in behaviorism, what I hope that you know is, well, what is behaviorism and who are the key people associated with behaviorism? Who are the behaviorists? Also, hopefully you'll understand the key terms of both classical and operant conditioning. And those are the two major branches of behaviorism, classical and operant, and to be able to tell the difference between the two. And finally, I'd like for you to be able to describe some classroom applications of behaviors. That's the point of this, right? You're here to learn more about how students learn and to try to apply these theories to your future. And I think that we'll talk a little bit about how you can apply behaviorism, which is very, very applicable to the classroom. But before we start, I'm going to show you some images on the screen. And I may call on you, so make sure your nameplate is where I can see it. Great. I may call on you and ask you just to tell us what is it that you see, and then I have a question for all of you after we've seen all of the images. So, first image, Ashley, what is that?
A dog.
It's a dog. She's absolutely right. Doesn't matter what kind of dog, just dog is good enough. How about this one, Natalie?
A child.
A child, or a baby, we'll say. We'll call it a baby. How about the next one, Daniel?
Cat.
It's a cat. Excellent. Finally, what do you think this is, Patricia?
A bird.
It's a bird. Very good. And then how about the last image, Haley? People. All right, great. So what I'd like for you to do, using your Post-it, is to try to figure out how a dog and a baby and a cat and a bird and some people are related to behaviorism. I'm about to teach you about behaviorism. Maybe you've studied behaviorism before, maybe not. Either way, make a guess on how a dog, a baby, a cat, a bird, and people, or you, might be connected to behaviorism. Take your best shot, write it on your Post-it. All right, so now I want you to tell the people at your table, and you guys are 3 to a table, so just go around the table and everyone just say, well, here's the best idea that I've got so far. All right, so let's hear some of these answers out loud. Anybody? And now, instead of telling me your answer, volunteer to tell me what someone else said at your table. And you don't have to identify them. You can just say, I heard this at my table. Anyone got something to share with us? Patricia?
I heard at my table that they all exhibit or mimic behaviors.
They all mimic behaviors. Thank you, Patricia. Great answer. Someone else? Tell us what you heard, Daniel.
They all have conditioned and instinctive behaviors.
They all have conditioned and instinctive behaviors. So he's using that word behavior in his answer. One more person. Tell us what you heard. They're all able to be conditioned. All right, great. Excellent work. So these symbols represent different people that are associated with behaviorism and what they focus their research on. So we're going to hear about the dog and the baby and the cat and the bird, and ultimately about us, you as a teacher and your students, during the presentation. So here are our behaviors. Working down our list, these are the notable behaviors. Pavlov is notable for the dog. Watson is notable for the baby. Thorndike is notable for working with cats. And Skinner is notable for working with pigeons. That's the type of birds that he worked with for the most part. So as far as who are the behaviors, these are the 4 notable ones that we're going to talk about tonight. 2 of them go together, and 2 of them go together in different ways. We talked about on the board classical conditioning and operant conditioning. The top 2 names are our classical conditionists, and we'll talk about them first. And then Thorndike and Skinner are our operant conditions, and we'll talk about them last. So next, let's talk about some basics of behaviorism. And we're working on identifying behaviorism from our list of objectives. So I'm going to give you 4 basic beliefs, and there are more than 4, but these are sort of the most important. The first, from the baby, is that behavior is observable. So these people feel like that behavior is something you can see. You're not wondering if the person's exhibited the behavior, you can see it. But this is important because the behaviorists came after people like Freud and Erikson. If you've ever studied Freud or Erikson, they were very interested in what was going on in people's heads. They were interested in the subconscious. The behaviorists are a reaction to that. They want to say, learning is not about what happened to you when you were 5 that you barely remember. Learning and behavior is about what you did today and what I see you do. So behavior is observable. They also believe that behavior can be measured, trained, and changed. And this is important to you as a school teacher, absolutely, because if you use behaviors in your classroom, then you will attempt to measure, train, and change students' behaviors. Next, the CAT says, we learn our behavior from our environment. And the behaviors believe that we are impacted greatly by what's around us and the stimuli or the reinforcements in our lives. And finally, the pigeon says, behavior, which is a response, is the result of a stimulus. All right, got those? We're going to see this slide again in just a minute, but I want you to take a very close look because we're about to talk about classical conditioning specifically. Observable, we can measure, train, and change because of our environment that we behave the way we do. And behavior, which is a response, these are first classical conditions. So when you think of the dog, you think of Pavlov, and you think of the bell and the salivation. But take a good look at those key terms. You're going to see those again in a minute. In fact, I'm going to quiz you. I'm going to show you another example of classical conditioning. I want to see if you as a table can figure out what's the conditioned stimulus, what's the unconditioned stimulus, what's the unconditioned response, what's the conditioned stimulus, and what's the conditioned response. I know that you can do it. Any questions about Pavlov? All right, so a couple of basics about some behaviorism. I'm sorry, let's back up. The point of this one is, let's check. Let's see if all of these are true in the Pavlov example. Was behavior observable in Pavlov's example? How was it observable, Ashley?
The dog salivated.
The dog salivated, and at the food and at the bell. So behavior was observable. He definitely measured, trained, and changed the behavior of the dogs. He also proved that behavior is a result of the environment. Had he never done the study, then the bell sound would not have ever made the dog salivate. It was only because he brought the bell into the environment and manipulated the dog with the bell and the food that he was able to make that happen. And then finally, the dog's behavior was definitely a response to a stimulus. At first it was just the food, then it was the bell. All make sense? So it checks out. It's definitely meeting our definition of behaviorism. So a couple of key ingredients that are going on here that we should make sure we think about is the salivation was involuntary. The dog didn't hear the bell and go, I know this guy. He's always trying to get me to do stuff. Oh, you know what? It's salivate. I'll salivate for him very generously. That's not how it happened. He would ring the bell, and the dogs were so conditioned, they would start salivating. They couldn't stop the salivation. Salivation. I thought I said salvation. The salivation would not stop. So definitely this is true. It's involuntary. In addition, the stimulus, ding, 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 came before the response. These are both key ingredients in classical conditioning. Remember, we're not just studying classical today. We're going to talk about operant conditioning as well. I'm going to show you a video now. It's a clip from The Office. You've probably seen this television show. This character, Jim, he uses classical conditioning to try to train a coworker. And as you watch, what I'd like you to do is I want you to look for these things. Can you find the unconditioned stimulus? Can you find the unconditioned response? What is the conditioned stimulus? And what is the conditioned response in this example? So what do you think? Take a couple of minutes and think about it as a table. What is the unconditioned stimulus, the unconditioned response, the conditioned stimulus, and the conditioned response?
just we offered the algebra, give people an example of the algebra. Because if you do the same thing over and over, I mean,
You have conditions to do that.
to do that.
So that's got to be a conditioned response, is the plan is handed.
All right, let's talk our way through this. All right, so Lindsay, which one is the easiest to figure out in this example? Like, which one did you know most quickly?